Greetings, one and all. Teching 101 here. Are you all ready to talk about some Norse mythology today? Yeah! Ugh. Are you ready to talk about how that Norse mythology ties into a Japanese manga about pirates, which also includes Norse giants? Yeah! All right, this is currently an empty mug, a very epic Viking-themed mug. However, I do have another Viking-themed mug, which still does have some coffee in it, so that's nice. Okay, so for this video, if you actually do want to talk about Norse mythology, if you don't, I mean, you could just, I guess, leave. You know, the door is right there, you know. But put on your favorite Norse death metal band, put on some Amon Amarth, get your Viking helm ready, pick up your mighty Viking sword, and get ready to talk about it, because we're gonna go through it today. We're gonna be talking about Yggdrasil for sure, and all the different techniques that Ragnir, Loki's hammer, is totally 100% capable of. Yes, okay. So, in the last chapter, chapter 1171, spoiler alert, at the end, you know, Loki finishes up his story, he gets freed, everybody starts heading up to the Sun Realm, and at that exact moment, one of the Mumas, one of the nightmare creatures that Killingham spawn, conveniently falls into the primordial realm. And so Loki's like, yeah, don't worry about it, guys. I'll take care of this thing, and then I'll fly back up. No problem. And Loki goes to attack, and Luffy sticks around too, because he's like, oh, I want to see how powerful you are, right? That story got me pumped, right? And so I love this trope. It's weird with this trope. I feel like I should be tired of it because it happens a lot. But the trope of like, hey, this character needs something as a measuring stick to show how powerful they are, so we can't have a major villain show up, so we'll just have a random throwaway enemy, like one of the nightmare creatures, one of the Draugrs, just falls into the primordial realm for some reason, and it's like, oh, cool, there's a random throwaway enemy that Loki can kill really quick to show how powerful he is, right? It happens a lot. My favorite is in Bleach, when all of the Visored show up at Fate Karakura, and it's like, okay, we're here, this is gonna be crazy, and then all of the Gillions just spawn in out of nowhere. Fura just pukes up all of these low-level Menos, and the Visors have a whole chapter where they just kick the crap out of these low-tier enemies, just to show how cool they are and all their abilities, because there wasn't enough other enemies to do that, so it's like, yeah, we just need something as a measuring stick to show how strong we are, right? That was kind of what happened, but it was still really cool. All right, so Loki jumps in, uses Ragnir, his trusty squirrel hammer companion, and uses a technique called Niflheim, or Nibelheim. The way that it's in the official is Nibelheim with a B. It's like one of the, it's a Germanic way of spelling Niflheim, all right? Because I think in Norse, by the way, I am going to mispronounce a bunch of Norse words today, so get excited for that too. But I believe the way you would say it is the F is more of like a V or a B sound in English, so it would be more of like Nibelheim rather than Niflheim. All right, so it is the name of one of the 9 realms of Yggdrasil, the world tree in Norse mythology. And, you know, I'm just going to say this as obvious, like this is going to happen, right? Clearly, there's no other arguments here. Why would Oda name a technique after one of the 9 realms of Yggdrasil and not include the other 8 as other techniques? That just doesn't make any sense. Clearly, all 9 are going to be represented through Loki's magic squirrel hammer. Yeah, at least I hope there are. See, when we were first introduced to the Adamwood tree, the Yggdrasil of Elbaf, right? I was really hoping that there was going to be 9 realms. That might have been a little bit too many, because it's like at the end of the day, Elbaf can't go on indefinitely. 9 realms might have been pushing it. So we get 3. We get the Primordial Realm, we get the Sun Realm, and we get the Heaven Realm. And honestly, after only 50 plus chapters into Elbaf, granted a lot of that was the flashback, although the flashback still included Elbaf, so I'm counting it. We still only know about 2 out of those 3 realms. We've seen the Primordial Realm and the Sun Realm pretty extensively. We have yet to see the Heaven Realm, the Astral Realm. We still have no idea what's going on up there, right? So I think Oda streamlined it a little bit just to keep it more simplistic. However, I think the 9 realms of the Yggdrasil from the Norse mythologies in our world are still going to be represented through Ragnir. And yes, I'm pretty sure it is Ragnir's ability that Loki uses. Same with the lightning abilities that he uses when he was first freed. He strikes Yggdrasil with his hammer, big lightning bolt comes down, and that was also the technique he used to defeat and kill his father Harald. He has not named that technique yet, but I think it is also going to be named after one of the 9 realms of Yggdrasil, and I think at the very least Ragnir will have those techniques. Now, when it comes to Loki and his legendary devil fruit, he is going to have a different suite of powers, I guess I will say, and he could totally turn into an eagle 100%. We're going to get into that in a moment. But anyway, yeah. So today, let's first start by going through Yggdrasil and the different realms that lie therein. So the best way for me to describe Yggdrasil is magic space tree, okay? It's a magic space tree in Norse mythology, which embodies pretty much everything, right? All of the realms are part of the tree, and it is a real tree, as in that it has roots and bark and a canopy and leaves, and so there's a fixed top of the tree and a fixed bottom of the tree, right? It's a magic space tree, but it still needs to have roots and things, right? Okay, so we got the 9 realms. We have Midgard, which just literally translates to Middle Earth. So in case you're curious why Tolkien calls it Middle Earth in Lord of the Rings, that's where he got it from. Midgard, literally Middle Earth, and that is in the center of the Yggdrasil tree. It is the middle of the tree, so middle. Then we have Asgard, which is the land of the Aesir gods, and it is connected specifically to Midgard via the Bifrost Bridge, okay? So there's 2 sets of gods in Norse mythology. There's the Vanir and the Aesir. Okay, the Aesir are like Odin and Thor. That's where they hang out, in Asgard, okay? By the way, side note, in Norse mythology, Thor is so redonkulously strong, there's a story where he is so freakishly powerful, he can't even cross the Bifrost. Because it's said if he takes 1 step on the Bifrost, just the act of his heel hitting the Bifrost, it would cause it to shatter, of just how strong he was. The friction of his heel hitting the Bifrost would shatter it. So there's a story where Odin and the rest of his family have to cross the Bifrost, and Thor has to be like, oh, don't worry, I'll just swim to the other side via the astral sea. And he does. And I think he beats everybody too. Thor jumps in and swims in the astral sea and makes it to the other side, and then Odin and everybody arrive, and it's like, wow, Thor, you beat us here. And Thor's like, yeah, it's no big deal, just swimming in the astral sea. My God, I am strong, right? So that's just one of the little side stories in Norse myth that's really fun, okay? So we have the Aesir gods there. Then we have Vanaheim, which is home to the Vanir, the other group of gods. These gods embody things like fertility and wisdom and a little bit of divination, too. They can kind of see the future. That's the Vanir. Okay, so those are gods. Then we have the realms of giants. We have Jotunheim and we have Nibelheim, or Niflheim. All right, so these, and Muspelheim as well. So it's something that is actually a little contentious on whether or not Jotun is a direct translation to giant. Most of the time in English, it is the term giant. However, there are some Jotun that pop up in Norse mythology that are not giants. Like, they are just not giant size. So it might not be just a 1-to-1 translation to giant, so keep that in mind. But we have Jotunheim, which is the land of the giants. It could also translate to trolls. That's what I mean, like a little bit, dubious on that. But at the end of the day, Norse mythology has been adapted into so many other works of fiction, right? Like the MCU, well, not just the MCU, but like Marvel in general, because Thor existed in the comics and everything like that, right? So, at the end of the day, for One Piece, I think we're just going to go with Jotun, probably meaning giant, but just to give you an added context there, okay? So we have Jotunheim, the land of giants. Then we have Niflheim, the land of the frost giants. It is the primordial realm of ice and snow and frost, okay? And the ice giants reside there. And then we have an opposite end of that, Muspelheim, which is the land of primordial fire and magma and ash. And then we have their king, Surtur, the lord of the fire giants, okay? One thing that I love, not just in Norse mythology, but of the idea of, like, opposites, like an equal opposite, like, balance, okay? So, like, in Norse myth and in a lot of other myths, the idea of, like, okay, if we're going to have a realm made of primordial ice, there must be an equal opposite to that. So there must be a realm of primordial fire. And then we're also going to get into these 2 additional realms where we have Alfheim, the land of the light elves. Well, if there's a land of light, there must also be a land of shadow and dark darkness to balance it out. And I love that type of stuff. The idea of like everything in the universe must be perfectly balanced, as all things should be. It even kind of extends to philosophy and like alchemy during the Middle Ages, the whole idea of like as above, so below. And even actually extends beyond the Middle Ages, because I think, another tangent, there are going to be a lot of these in the video, I'll make it quick. I believe this was possibly after the Americas was discovered by Europe, so they knew that the American continents existed. There was an idea that there must be an equal amount of land in the northern hemisphere of the planet Earth as there is in the southern hemisphere. So there was a dude that was like, okay, there must be an equal amount of land, so therefore there must be a southernmost continent to make up all the extra land. So he was technically right, for the wrong reason, because Antarctica and also Australia do exist. However, there is just not a balance there. That's not how planets work. That's not how planets form, with like more like land balanced 50-50 on the hemispheres. No, there's more land in the northern hemisphere of the planet Earth than in the southern hemisphere. But it's an interesting example of, once again, like opposites, as above, so below, right? Okay. So we have the land of the humans, the land of the elves, the land of the giants, and the land of the gods. There are also the land of the dwarves, which is, it could be called Nidavellir, but it's also sometimes called Svartenfell. Really probably butchered that one. But anyway, that's another one that gets a little dubious, because it's the land of the dwarves, but also sometimes the land of the dark elves, and sometimes the dwarves are spoken as if they are the one and the same, like the land of the dwarves, like the dwarves are the dark elves, or it might be Nidavellir is a separate place in this realm where the dwarves reside, and then the dark elves live in some other realm. Gets a little confusing, but that's that realm. And then we have Hell. Okay, just Hell, H-E-L, and it is lorded over by a being also referred to as Hell, H-E-L. And of course, you could see her in the hit movie, Thor 3, Ragnarok. I'm going to be making a lot of references to the MCU in this video. Okay, kind of already did, because Nidavellir. I'm going to call it Nidavellir, because that's the place that Chris Hemsworth goes with a raccoon to go meet Peter Dinklage to make him a new hammer. Axe thing, okay? Yeah, of course. So those are the realms, all right? We can go into more detail with those, but I'm going to try to, like, push it back to One Piece now. We have a lot of options here on a different abilities and elemental power that Loki could harness through Ragnir. So Niflheim, or Nibelheim, being the power of ice, the ice element attack. Makes perfect sense to me. It's the realm of primordial ice. So there you go. He hits something really hard with the hammer, and it freezes solid. It's like sheer cold in Pokemon. It's a one-shot kill ability, and I'm pretty sure the Draugr he hit with that ability that turned into solid ice is just going to shatter apart in the next chapter into like a million pieces. So that thing's not getting pasted back together, okay? So then, opposite of that, there's going to be another technique called Muspelheim, and it's just going to be a big fire attack. Anything he hits with the hammer immediately gets immolated. Just whoosh, whole thing gets ignited at once on fire, all right? So right away, two abilities. There's a fire ability, and there's an ice ability. Do you see any problem with that? I don't see any problem with that. Okay, so what about the lightning ability? I'm feeling that's the power of Asgard. I think that technique, the lightning ability, is just going to be called Asgard. For one thing, it's like the one main thing that Thor's hammer Mjolnir is known for, being able to summon lightning and thunder and all that kind of shit, and rock and roll, right? And so you can kind of look at it that way, and just the idea that he used this ability to kill his father Harald. All right, this was the ability that was used to slay the Lord of Elbaf. I feel like calling it just Asgard would work fine in that regard. So I'm going to go ahead and call the lightning strike ability Asgard. All right. So then next, we have the Light Realm, the Alfheim, and then Nidavellir or Svartenfell, the land of the Dark Elves, okay? So this one we could literally do, like, light energy or, like, radiant damage, okay? So, like, Loki throws the hammer or hits somebody with the hammer, and just holy light just hits them, okay? It's like almighty damage. It's like, try to block this. You can't. Bam, all right? And just holy light just hits them. Then opposite of that, we have Nidavellir, which could be the power of shadows or darkness. So these abilities are a little bit more esoteric than just ice and fire. I admit, ice, fire, lightning, pretty standard elements. The power of raw light or the power of raw darkness, okay? So you can interpret that in a couple of different ways. You can interpret light just being like a laser beam, right? Like Loki. I mean, okay, can you imagine if Loki has a laser beam? If you're just adding that on his list of crazy bullshit. It's not actually bullshit. It actually does make sense what he's doing. He essentially has two mythical Zoan devil fruits at his disposal at any given time because he's wielding Ragnir, plus he has his legendary fruit, okay? And he was already strong to begin with. So these are not bullshit powers. Loki is just like top 3 strongest characters. Maybe the strongest character in One Piece that we've seen so far. Like honestly, I think you could make an argument for that. But can you imagine how damn cool it would be for Loki to take out his hammer and just be like, all right, let's do this. Alfheim, and then he just hits somebody and a giant laser beam just blasts them away. Lasers already exist in One Piece. We already have that. We already have a dude named made out of light, and we have Frankie and all the pacifistas that can fire lasers, so why not have Loki be able to fire lasers through magical, light, holy energy? Just go with it, right? And then we have the power of darkness, you know, the Nidavellir side of things, or the Dark Elves, where he could maybe just hit something really hard and it gets shrouded in darkness, and the darkness is like Blackbeard's darkness. It works like gravity. It like crushes you, okay? We've already seen some mythical Zoans that can have abilities that, you know, carry over similar abilities to Paramecia's and Lokia's, right? That's kind of the whole point of a mythical Zoan. It gives you the power to transform into an animal, and then it also gives you another ability that's more Paramecia or possibly Logia related, okay? So having, you know, a busted gravity, or maybe not even necessarily Logia, like with the Yami Yami no Mi, if you don't want to go that way with it, you can literally just use it as gravity, because sometimes darkness is interpreted as gravity. You know, Blackbeard uses it that way. So why not just the Zushi no Mi, which is Fujitora's, right? So it has the ability of turning into a squirrel, Ratatotsker, and then it also can exhibit all these different abilities across the elemental side of things. Why not, right? And one of them happens to be gravity. Yeah. All right. So then we have, Vanaheim. So Vanaheim is all about fertility and wisdom and a little bit more of like the nature side of things. So I thought it would be pretty cool to have an ability where Loki uses Vanaheim technique and he slams into an enemy, and then maybe vines and plants and stuff appear and, like, you know, ensnare the enemy that way, or maybe like drain them, something along those lines. Fighting against Summers, I thought that would be really cool. Obviously, you'd think Fire would be the most advantageous against Summers because he controls thorns, but I also thought it would be funny if he uses thorns against Loki, and Loki's like, you know, shut that shit down, and, you know, like Vanaheim, and then hits the ground really hard, and then just a bunch of Loki's plants like emerge from wherever he hit his hammer, and they choke out Summers' thorns, or make Summers' thorns turn into harmless flowers or whatever, and Summers is like, what? You know, something similar to Aramaki's ability. So we're just going ahead with Loki having the powers of the admirals, which we kind of already saw when he used Nibelheim against the Draugr. That was essentially the Hia no Mi. He froze an entire skeleton bigger than the size of the mountains of the primordial world solid in one attack. That is totally something Aokiji could do, so why not just have the fire powers be the Mera no Mi or the Magu no Mi, and Vanaheim being nature powers akin to Aramaki, and the darkness power being equivalent to Fujitora. And then we have Alfheim, the light power, equivalent to Kizaru. So there you go. Loki just has all of the powers of the admirals at his disposal in his fucking hammer. Not even his own power, just his hammer, right? At the very least, he has ice powers that seem to be on the level, if not greater than Aokiji's, so why not have all the other ones? Why not, right? Okay. So, yeah, we covered fire and ice and light and darkness, and nature. Also, because the Vanir sometimes have the ability to, like, see the future, maybe it isn't an offensive technique. Maybe more it's like an ability of, like, the Eye of Thundara or something, where Loki holds up, he's like, all right, Ragnir, my mighty hammer, show me the future, give me sight beyond sight. Oh, you know, oh, wait, actually, hold on, let me see if this still works. Hold on. Oh, okay. Art thou not worthy? Oh, yeah. There we go. It still works. Nice. Okay. So maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's something like that. Okay. So then we have, I think, just 3 realms left, right? Okay, so we have Midgard, which is the land of of the humans. It is Earth. Okay, it's Middle Earth. Okay, so what power could be represented through Midgard? I don't know why I immediately went to this. I think it might just be because I'm trying to adapt this to like elemental damage in Pokemon or Baldur's Gate 3 or like D&D or something like that. I immediately went to thunder damage, just like shockwave sound damage. I don't know why. Maybe you would interpret something else there. Earth is filled with water, and in fact, in the One Piece world, Midgard would probably be the parallel to Blue Planet, and that's mostly water. So you could say maybe Midgard is a water-themed ability, right? But then again, it is a devil fruit power, so possibly not that. I'm kind of shying away from that. Let's just go with big boom. Let's just go with big shockwave damage. You know, Loki swings his hammer, calls out Midgard, and it just rings out a crazy amount of concussive force through that, which probably would be what a hammer usually does, but it's magic. It's a magic shockwave. Let's go with that. Yeah, that one I didn't really have much to go for. And also Jotunheim, just like a standard realm of the giants or possibly trolls. I do have an idea for that one, and it's just going along with the logic of, you know how Luffy beat Kaido and how Luffy beats most of his opponents? He just makes a giant fist and punches them really hard. What if Loki just makes a giant hammer and hits somebody really hard? The ability is just Jotunheim, and then Ragnir grows to like 100 times its size, but Loki's still able to wield it, and he just brings down the giant hammer, right? The size of an island, equivalent to Luffy's monkey god gun that he used to defeat Kaido, except it's a hammer. And he just pounds whatever he hits flat. All right, like we could just do that. We just make it simple, right? Jotunheim, giant realm. The hammer gets huge. Bam, done, easy. And then lastly, we have Hell, which this is something interesting because Hell is an afterlife. It is the place where people go when you die in the magic space tree of Yggdrasil, okay? Now, there was a dude that wrote about this a lot later. A lot of the information we get about Yggdrasil, like the core information will either come from the Poetic Edda or the Prose Edda, which were both adapted in the 13th century by a guy named Snorri, who lived from 1179 to 1241, right? And he wrote the Prose Edda, or at least the majority of the Prose Edda. And the Poetic Edda is a collection of all the stories and poems from earlier on in Norse mythology gathered together into one thing. And then he takes it and turns it into the Prose Edda. Keep in mind, the Viking Age, like when we mostly think of like the main golden Viking Age, was like somewhere around 850 AD to like, let's say 1150 AD. That's not exact, but like around that 200-year period. King Canute establishes his great Northern Sea Empire. You know, this is also the time Vinland Saga takes place. And so that empire kind of dies out around like 1130s to 1140s, something like that. That's the golden age of Vikings. And then later on in the 12th and 13th century, we have Snorri adapting a lot of this stuff into the Prose Edda. So one of those adaptations is that Hell is the afterlife for those that just grow old and die of age or sickness. That's where they end up going, right? I don't think that's part of the original Poetic Edda. I think that's something that was added in later or an interpretation that Snorri made. But either way, we can just roll with that, okay? So necrotic damage, I guess. We'll just go with that, right? Like Loki spins his hammer, hits somebody. And this can I actually see as like a finishing move, right? Like a move Loki only uses when he's like, this is it, my ultimate attack. Like I could see this as his strongest move, is he just uses Hell, all right? And it hits you and it just kills you. It wipes you out of existence. It removes you from this plane, all right? It atomizes your corpse. You're gone. You're dust. You're disintegrated, is the power of Hell, all right? I could see that as like the ultimate inevitability, all right? So we can go along with this. And there's other stories in the actual Eddas, like Odin makes a trip to Hell at one point atop a horse, and Brunhilde goes to Hell and through a journey at some point there. She's a Valkyrie or like a shield maiden. So yeah, if you've seen Record of Ragnarok, you get some comparisons to this, I guess. There's a lot of creative license in there, but you know, the characters have the same names, right? So yeah, we'll go with that. All right. So Muspelheim, fire ability. Nibelheim, ice ability. Vanaheim, possibly a nature manipulation ability. Asgard, lightning ability. Midgard, shockwave, thunder ability. Alfheim, light laser beam ability. Nidavellir, darkness gravity ability. Hell, ultimate final attack necrotic ability. Oh, and Jotunheim, just here comes the giant hammer ability. There you go. And that's, once again, just the powers of Ragnir. Just the powers of, that is half of everything that Loki is capable of. Oda is really establishing Loki to be, like, the strongest son of a bitch in the entire manga at this point. Like, we are really setting that up. So why not, right? Like, let's just throw all these powers onto him. He has all of the access of all the suite of abilities that the admirals possess, and then more with his own abilities, which we've even yet to see. We know he turns into some kind of human hybrid eagle creature, maybe Needhog, maybe Fenrir, and he can just, like, one-shot a strong character like Harald even within that form, you know, without even using the hammer. He's strong enough to do just that. So at this point, I'm going to bring up the different animals that exist on Yggdrasil, the magic space tree. Okay, so I've been using these type of like artworks to kind of like display to you the animals and how they look. So like this is Ratatotsker, okay? And then here is Vader atop the unnamed eagle, which may or may not be the eagle that summons the winds. We don't know if it's the same eagle on top of Yggdrasil. If you're curious on where these come from, all right? So these were not drawn by Snorri. These also do not come from the time of the Vikings. These are 17th century, and we do not know the illustrator or the author. So I dug into it, and I actually did manage to find the full image of Yggdrasil. So this is the full piece of artwork with all the different animals in them. We see Needhog chewing on one of the roots at the bottom. We see Ratatotsker running up the side of the tree. We see the eagle and the hawk at the top of the tree. And we see four deer, four stags or hearts that guard the cardinal directions. Their names are Dane, Duelin, Dwernar, and Derp. And just Derp. Derp is the, you know, he's the youngest sibling. It's like, and it's Derp. You know, he's hanging out. Four stags that guard the cardinal directions of the tree, all right? And so, as you would imagine, each of these animals bear a different job or role. For example, Ratatotsker's role is to be a messenger from the Needhog all the way up to the eagle and the hawk, and basically just spread hot gossip and just carry insults back to one another. So that's fun. Ratatotsker having a horn, by the way, shows up in this interpretation by the currently unknown artist. It is signed, because this manuscript where this artwork comes from, it's in a gallery in Reykjavik in Iceland. The official title of it is AM7384 meaning quattro, meaning in fours, because it's like a piece of paper that's folded twice, and that's kind of like how the whole thing is layered. And so AM stands for Arnie Magnusson. That's the guy that owns the collection, and I think 738 just means the index number of in the catalog of the library, right? But at the beginning of this manuscript, it does bear a date of 1680, so that seems to be the idea of when it was finished, okay, so like 17th century, and then it is signed SG. All right, so if your initials are SG, congratulations. You might be the hidden author of this manuscript. There's some, you know, people that lived in Iceland that we know about during the 17th century that do have the initials of S and G, which they might have been the author or the illustrator or both of this. There's also another signing on the back that's GSS as an initial. So that's somebody else, like a collaborator. We don't know. We don't 100% know, and I'm not going to go way into that there. But that's the origin of this thing, okay? Anyway, that's why Ratatotsker has a horn. Seems to be an artistic interpretation there, because Ratatotsker literally translates to drill tooth or the boring tooth. Doesn't necessarily lend to the fact of it having a horn, but I think this is important, because I think this is what Oda was looking at as a basis for depicting Ratatotsker Ragnir. Okay, and so Ragnir doesn't have a horn, has a hammer on his head. I think that's what Oda was basing this on, right? Which is, once again, while I'm going with the idea that Loki can turn into an eagle, because I find the outline of the eagle and Vaderfulnir very similar to Loki's outline when he transforms, and you can see the silhouette. Some people say it looks more like Fenrir. Some people say it looks more like the Needhog, which you can also see the Needhog on this mural as well, way at the bottom. Do you guys want to see some other artwork that shows up in this manuscript? Because it's fantastic. You want to see Odin? All right, this is Odin as he appears in this manuscript. This is Odin. He's Yeah, he's hanging out. Odin seems like in this scene, he's just like inviting a bunch of people to dinner and he's giving the side eye to somebody. He's just like, is this dude really eating all my food? Who is this guy? I didn't invite this guy. Why he's showing up and eating all my food? You know, that's the impression I get from this guy, from Odin. Here is Loki. Are you ready to see Loki? You're not ready to see Loki, but there's Loki. There's Loki. Nice hat. I like the feather in his hat. That's Loki from this manuscript. Yeah, Loki and Odin right there. Yeah. Let's see. Do you want to see the Jormungandr? The Jormungandr is actually the world serpent. The Jormungandr is actually pretty cool. That's the Jormungandr. Reaching over to grab a deer's head or a goat's head off of a hook to eat. So that's the world serpent. And then an anonymous author, by the way, we don't know. This is Fenrir. This is the wolf, Loki's child, Fenrir. Kind of looks more like a saber-toothed cat, bound up here with rope, but that's Fenrir. Here's Freya. That's Freya. Yeah, just she hanging out, and either I don't know if she's like knitting or doing some like needlework, embroidery, or if that's supposed to be like some kind of harp. I think it's like some kind of needlework thing she's doing. But that's Freya. There you go. Yeah, and there you go. That's what we. Oh, here's Heimdall. Here's Heimdall with his horn. Oh my God, I love Heimdall with his horn. Hey, you know what? Like, you didn't have a lot of options maybe back in the day. Like this guy might have been the best artist in all of Iceland back in the day. All right, so there you go. His artwork lives on in the form of One Piece, perhaps. There you go. Okay. Well, anyway, that's the video. I know I probably went overboard with the descriptions on that manuscript and also talking about Yggdrasil, the magic space tree. But I just had to... Oh, there's one more thing I forgot about. Nidhogg, as you know, is the dragon or serpent that gnaws on the root of Yggdrasil. There's actually 3 distinctive roots. There's not just one. Nidhogg gnaws on one of them. There's another one that is the home to the Nords, which kind of like see the future. And then there's another one that I believe is called Mimir's Well. And it's like a disembodied head, I think, at the bottom of a well that kind of gives you wisdom and knowledge if you like look down it. So there's another place there, and it's a well, and it goes even deeper. So yeah, there you have it. I just wanted to bring that up. I think that's everything I wanted to address today. All right. Well, anyway, let me know on if you think any of that stuff is going to be incorporated into One Piece for Loki's power. I would really hope we get to see all 9 realms at least represented through Ragnir's abilities. So we'll look forward to that, I suppose. Thanks for watching, everybody, and thanks for hanging out with me and talking about some Norse mythology today. I always love it. Teching 101 signing out. Bye, everyone.